Madrid going to be doing, what they're doing in terms of thinking about City. And obviously that game in midweek, it's very different to playing against Leyton Orient, but it's a game nonetheless.
A big issue as well, we don't know what the situation with Nico is yet, whether he's going to be fit to play in midweek, because obviously he's been signed to replace Rodri, bring some legs, some energy into midfield. If he's not available against Real Madrid, then they've got a problem. They've got a problem because
relax, you man. They've just won 2-1. Relax.
Let's throw the ball forward.
Let them have a minute.
If it's Gundogan, De Bruyne, John Stones in midfield against Real Madrid, against Bellingham, people like that, Valverde, problem time.
It's obviously not a first-choice 11 that we saw from City today, Stevie, but what's your kind of biggest takeaway from what we saw over the 90 minutes from Pep's team?
My biggest takeaway is that right now, Manchester City, regardless of what team they put out, everything's a struggle. Yes, they deserve to win the game, but it's a struggle. And every time the opposition, again, regardless of who it is, goes forward, they're giving up chances.
I feel like we've been saying that all year about Manchester City. What does it say about City that it's today against League One opposition? Because to suffer right against now, Premier League, against Champions League teams, you can understand. To suffer like this...
Well, the problem City have is regardless of who the opposition is, they struggle. Whether it's Real Madrid and coming up, or whether it's today, or whether it was last week, regardless of the opposition, they struggle. This team has absolutely got a crisis of confidence. And yes, sometimes when you go away in the early rounds of the Cup, small stadium, pitch is not as great as it usually is. But right now, it doesn't matter where Manchester City play, they struggle. That has to be a huge worry going into the Real Madrid game.
For me, the only takeaway for Manchester City is that it is, regardless of who City play, they have possession, they have control, but still they're lacking any real sense of creativity, not threatening in a way that they would, and at the other end, they're vulnerable. We show that late chance for Leyton Orient with happy defender getting loose. How does a defender get that free in City's box at that point of the game? These are questions that we've asked of Manchester City all season long, regardless of the opponent, be it League One opposition or otherwise, and that's the big concern for all their talent that we've spoken about, albeit underperforming talent. For all that was spent in the January transfer window in trying to address some of their deficiencies and build for the future, some of those players involved today, it just looked like the same old City, same old complaints that we've had all season long.
Yeah. Nadim said he wasn't having a panic attack, but I wonder what he was feeling in the moment when Donley hit that ball through the air, Nadim, as it sailed towards the crossbar and off Ortega. What was going through your mind?
Listen, I was trying my best to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I didn't want anybody to be reaching out to me whatsoever. And then the excitement of people say, oh, it's an own goal, Ortega scored an own goal, all this stuff, it's great. Listen, I was in hell. I'll be completely honest with you, I was in hell. Credit to him for seeing the opportunity, taking the shot and so on. But given how the last few months have gone, I started to turn into that old school dour, City supporter way, thinking everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And I've been very fortunate for that to not be a reality in recent years. But it kind of feels like those moments again. And when people can score goals like that, then yeah, why would you believe that everything's going to be fine on the day?
Nadim, where do you think this leaves them ahead of the Real Madrid tilt?
To be honest, I couldn't think of two more different games. Playing against Leyton Orient in the FA Cup versus playing against Real Madrid in the Champions League, especially with that first leg being at home. And seeing sort of Real Madrid at times have their own issues, them have defensive issues, but then City having so many issues as we've seen in the last few months. I don't know, it's going to be such a different plan. It's probably going to be a very different looking team as well in terms of who's going to be starting. It's going to be Stones and Ruben Diaz. It's going to be somebody else. It's going to be Rico Lewis. They've got so many potential changes to come in for that game, and I'd imagine the approach that they'll have will be very different to the one that they had today. But in reality, I think this is one of the beauties of football, especially playing in England. You can go from an FA Cup tie like that to playing against the Kings of Europe the next week. So we'll have to see. The confidence is there because the fact is they've just won a game of football. But I think they'll know that there are issues. But thankfully, the next game is going to be very different.
Augie, we were looking at some debuts today. We had Vitor Reis. He was subbed off at the half and got beaten for speed pretty early in that first half. Kusanov obviously didn't have a great debut. He does get the goal today. Nico Gonzalez goes out hurt 20 minutes in. These were the signings that were supposed to help Manchester City. Marmoush was active today, but he missed a sitter. You have any doubts about the players that they've brought in, even though it's only been a little bit that we've seen?
Yeah, you've got doubts because, Man City aren't signing players from the top tier at the moment. They're signing players that have got potential. Maybe the situation with the club's facing with the 115 charges might be an issue. The way they're playing this season might be an issue. But they're basically signing players on potential. And when you do that, you do take a risk. 50% of all transfers fail, that's across the board. So you've got to think that they're going to be very lucky for all these players to pay off. What I've seen of them so far, it's too early to judge Nico. He had 20 minutes and went off injured. But Kujanov, questionable. Reis, questionable. Marmoush will score goals, but is he any better than Julian Alvarez, who they let go in the summer? So I'm not sure they're replacing top players with better players, and that is a problem. Any top club that has a decline, it starts when they replace top quality players with players that aren't quite as good. So I think the jury's out, and I don't think they're going to be any more than squad players between now and the end of the season.
Nathan, what's your early sense of these signings?
Well, obviously it's crisis for the new signings in week 2. This is what happens when you sign 19 and 20-year-olds. Obviously they stink at this level.
But it is.
No, you behave yourself, you. I think the fact that they were so young, and I think the fact that they're buying into potential is an interesting thing. Because as you look, say, further down the road in a few years' time, I wonder if these guys will be integral to whatever Man City are in that moment. And I think as well, in terms of their long-term future, the thing that will change more than anything will be Guardiola probably won't be here in a year's time. So what are these players going to be like? Have they got enough time with him to sort of bed in and continue with the culture which they've had to this point? But Marmoush, as Mark said, I could see him scoring goals. The two centre-halves. He's touch and go. 19, 20 years old, coming to a new league, playing in the style that Man City play, playing against the players that will be playing on a week-to-week basis. It might take time to adjust, but City have seen potential, and overall, Mark, most of their signings have been quite good over time.
I think the problem City have got right now is that they've got young players with potential who need a bit of time to bed in, alongside older players, senior players who aren't playing anything like what they used to be able to play. And maybe they've gone over the hill a little bit at City. De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan. So you've got older players that are struggling and younger players that are coming to find their feet, and it's not a good mix. So maybe it's not ideal to play in Real Madrid with that situation right now.
There were some players, obviously, we were looking at for debuts. We also had an eye on Jack Grealish. What do you think of his performance today?
Well, I think he saved his performance with the ball he put through for De Bruyne, because up until then he had a lot of the ball, but really there was no real end product, and that for a guy who, as I said, was 100 million, it's not good enough just to be part of passing the ball around and keeping the ball. You have to produce something. You either have to go past your defender and leave him sitting on his backside, or you've got to, when you're putting the ball in the box, you've got to pick somebody out. So that's what you have to do when you are supposed to be a superstar.
Is it arrogant to expect that he would dominate a team like Leyton Orient? When I saw him on the team sheet, I thought he's going to be the difference today.
I guess dominate's the wrong word, because when he did get the ball and he was going at his defenders the way he has done, you really weren't sure whether he was going to beat him or not. When you're supposed to be the next big thing, you should, just visually, you should look different class to a team who are 3 tiers below you. That didn't look the case, other than that superb ball through for De Bruyne.
I will say, I'm with you, Seb, in that, I don't think it's unrealistic to expect Jack Grealish to dominate against Leyton Orient. But that being said, Jack Grealish's performance was mirrored by 8 players in that, or 8 Manchester City players in that park. Yep. Outside of, I thought Savinho was good on the right hand side. He was lively. Kusanov, once he comes off the bench, and yes, good fortune to get the goal, but then show the pace that he has and what he can bring to City defensively. Outside of that, nobody